So the theme is stress reduction. What is stress? You have to know what it is in order to reduce it. Stress is actually a misnomer for the most part. Sometimes people associate it as the action outside of you, or an internal thing that's a driver that we call stress. But really, stress, that's not stress. That's a stressor that you're looking at. When you're looking at the things outside of you that are bothering you, or the things outside of you that are elevating your fight, flight, or freeze responses, those are stressors in your life. What we're referring to is actually called stress responses. That's what stress is. And stress responses as a whole, it can be summed in various stages, but really in the essence of it, there's 5 stages as far as I'm defining it today. The first stage is alarm. That's the fight, flight, or freeze. Your body perceives a stressor, whether it be from within or a response from within as a result of something that's happening outside of you. And that's your alarm. You get scared, you get frozen, you actually take on fighting, right? But as a result of the alarm, that's where we get that resistance. And the resistance is actually the response, right? The resistance is where your heart rate starts elevating, your muscles constrict. If it's a scary scenario, you laugh if people are providing you with something that increases your eustress as opposed to your distress. You cry when the stress gets so high that in terms of resistance, your body creates these physiological responses so that you must get teary. And so that's alarm, and then that's resistance. The third step of the 5 steps to this is that you actually have an opportunity to potentially recover. And that's where most people go, actually. When it's a normal stressor where at the end of it, you even get upset, you maybe even yell, or you go through that sad moment. The recovery actually gives you the opportunity to regress from those emotions. So all of the physiological responses that your body has given you finally worked, right? And it brings you back to a baseline. Perfect example would be in the somatic, in exercise, right? You increase stress by adding something like resistance or running or something that causes your heart rate to go up, and that resistance is actually the heart rate coming up, that it's trying to respond to it. But when you remove yourself from the stress, there's the potential recovery. Your heart rate starts coming down. The positive hormones that are produced through exercise actually allow you to feel good or better than the stress of actual exercise, and then you've essentially recovered, right? And there's 2 more pathways that you can go to. The 4th pathway is actually adaptation, and you have adaptation in the sense that if the stress isn't going away and your response to it isn't going away, then we have what's a chronic adaptation that's actually more of a negative response, and you start associating pain, you start taking it on like a trauma, you start taking on a higher blood pressure, higher increase of adipose tissue in terms of gaining weight, or a reduction in your ability to sleep, and increased anxiety, something along those lines, right? Or you can have the type of adaptation in which, because you've recovered, it becomes a chronic adaptation to a future stressor, right? And in terms of the response to that stress, it becomes positive change. You get stronger, more resilient. You develop a healthier tissue in terms of the next time you get in an argument, because you recovered from it in an appropriate way, the trigger of that argument actually comes down, right? You actually diffuse the argument before the argument happens, because you start recognizing through this chronic adaptation. And then finally, if you go for too long, whether it be good stress, eustress, or whether it be distress, bad stress, what happens is that if you don't recover enough, you burn out, you fail, you collapse, you reach exhaustion. Within that, what we're looking at when we're looking at stress reduction is that it's being able to navigate that you can have eustress, the good stress. You can have distress, the bad stress, right? But it's how you actually treat the resistance to those stressors and how you actually recover from those stressors. So if it's distress, you might have to actually back down from a scenario or walk back from a scenario in terms of conflict or actually in terms of fear, right? Be able to breathe in a scenario so that it becomes buoyant again, your courage, right? Or else it starts failing, right? And failure, in the bigger picture, there's nothing wrong with failing. It just presents you with an opportunity to learn. So in the opportunity to learn, whether it be from the eustress or whether it be from the distress, one of the things that I want to emphasize, and perhaps going into it tomorrow, is that how do we find a way to nourish the soul food of your life, the soul fire of your life, the thing that makes you buoyant, the stuff that lifts you up, the legs that hold you up, whether it be through self-love, the community that you build that supports you, or the actions and events that help lead to that kind of positive outcome. So here we go. You have a situation, it produces stress, and really in the bigger picture, this adaptation is a pivot of 1 degree, nothing big, and just walk a straight line in another direction.